Welcome to the podcast series, Small Business Survival Conversations. Through our weekly conversations, we hope to provide you with strategies and insights, knowledge and expertise to enlighten you as you work to build and grow your business.
Good morning, business warriors. I'm your host, Anna Steinfest, and welcome back to Small Business Survival Conversations, the podcast for entrepreneurs, dreamers, builders, and business owners who understand that success isn't just about making money. It's about building something meaningful, something lasting, and something that matters beyond your bank account. So it's Monday morning, a new week, a fresh page, and a clean slate. And I want to ask you something before we go any further. What are you walking into this week carrying? Because some of you are starting this week energized. You've got momentum, a plan, and you are ready. And I love that for you. But some of you are already heavy. You're walking into Monday morning carrying last week's problems, last month's stress, a challenge that didn't go away over the weekend just because you wished it would. Maybe you're wondering how you're going to land the next customer. Maybe you're staring at an invoice you don't know how to cover. Maybe you lost an employee or a client or a contract, and you're sitting here and thinking, why does everything feel so hard right now? If that's you, I need you to stay with me today, because today's story is for you especially. It's not about the billionaire. It's not about a tech startup. It's not about someone who started with $1 million and turned it into 10. It is about a farmer and a rattlesnake. Actually, hundreds of rattlesnakes, not one rattlesnake. And I promise you, by the time you're done this morning with this episode, you will never look at your biggest business problem the same way again. So I'm sure that a lot of you have heard of Dale Carnegie. He is one of the greatest teachers of human potential who ever lived. That's my opinion. I hope you share that opinion. So he tells a story in his work about a man who bought a piece of land in Florida. Now, this man had a dream. He was going to farm this land, build something, create something, make a life from the ground up. That's the entrepreneurial spirit. That's the business warrior mindset. But when he arrived, the land was a disaster. The soil was poor. Nothing of real value would grow there. No crops worth harvesting, no fruit, no timber, no income-producing potential that anyone could see. Just miles of scrap brush baking under the Florida sun. And rattlesnakes. Hundreds of them. Now, I want you to pause here for just a second, because I want you to feel what this man felt. He hadn't just failed at something small. He had staked his future on a piece of land. He had made a decision, committed to it, put his time and money into it, and arrived to find that the thing he'd invested in looked like a complete disaster. How many of you have been there? I have been there. So maybe it wasn't a land. Maybe it was a business idea that didn't land the way you thought, a product that didn't sell, a location that turned out to be wrong, or a partnership that fell apart. An investment of time and money that looked like a loss by the time the dust settled. Most people in the farmer's position do one of two things. They either give up, they cut their losses and walk away, or they stay and spend the rest of their time complaining about the terrible hand they were dealt. But this farmer did something else entirely. He asked a different question. Not why me, not what went wrong, not why is my luck always terrible. He asked, what can I actually do with what I have? And that question, business warriors, that one simple shift from complaint to curiosity changed everything. He looked at those rattlesnakes, and instead of seeing a disaster, he started seeing something else. People were fascinated by rattlesnakes. Tourists, scientists, curious visitors from all over. Nobody in Florida was capitalizing on that. Nobody had built anything around it. The very thing that made his land seem worthless to everyone else was sitting there completely untapped. So he built a rattlesnake farm. He opened it to tourists. They came by thousands. He sold rattlesnake meat on the top of it, which actually has a market. He sold rattlesnake skin to the leather industry. He collected venom and supplied it to the medical laboratories and were producing anti-venom medication, literal medicine that saved human lives. And eventually, the entire town around him became known for this rattlesnake attraction. So, what was once a patch of worthless land became a destination. The very thing every other person would have paid someone to remove became his business model. So, business warriors, I need you to let that land for a second. He didn't get better land. He didn't get a loan and start over somewhere else. He didn't wait for circumstances to change. He looked at the exact thing standing in his way and said, what if this isn't a wall? What if this is a door? That is entrepreneurship. That is, I should say, true entrepreneurship, real entrepreneurship, not the kind they sell you in the highlight reels and social media posts, the glamorous version with the private jets and the overnight success stories. Real entrepreneurship is messy. Real entrepreneurship is making something from what you actually have, not from what you wish you had. Now, before we go further, I want to share a second story from the same chapter that has stayed with me ever since I first read it. Carnegie writes about a man stationed in the Mojave Desert, one of the most unforgiving landscapes in the world. Heat that doesn't quit, isolation, sand in every direction, no comfort, no community, no escape. And this man was miserable, deeply, genuinely miserable. He wrote letters home saying he wanted to quit, that he couldn't stand it, that the place was impossible and he was done. His wife wrote back, and in her letter, she included just two lines that she'd found somewhere. She didn't even write them herself. She just sent them. And it reads, two men looked through prison bars. One saw the mud, the other saw the stars. That was it. That was the whole message. And somehow it broke something open in him. The desert didn't change from then. The heat didn't let up. The isolation didn't disappear, but something shifted in the way he was choosing to see it. He started studying the desert, the plants, the wildlife, the geology. He started learning the culture of the people who lived there. He made friends. He explored. He found beauty in a place he had only ever experienced as a prison. And eventually, he wrote a novel set in that desert, a novel that found an audience, an opportunity that never would have existed if he had spent his whole time there staring at the mud. So, business warriors, I tell you this story because I know some of you are in your own desert right now. Maybe your industry is changing and you feel left behind. Maybe you're in a market that feels oversaturated. Maybe you're in a season of business that feels like nothing is working no matter how hard you try. Maybe you're the person who keeps showing up every Monday and doing the work, and you're starting to wonder if the work is ever going to pay. I hear you, and I want to say this as directly as I can. You get to choose what you look at. You can look at the mud, and there will always be mud. There will always be evidence that things are hard, that the market is tough, that your circumstances aren't fair, that evidence is real. I'm not going to tell you to pretend it is not. But remember that the stars are also real. The question is which one you're choosing to fix your eyes on. So let's bring this closer to home for a second because I think it's easy to hear a story like the rattlesnake farm. And I think that's a great story, Anna, but my situation is different. So let's talk about your situation. Every business has rattlesnakes, every single one. And I worked with enough business owners over the years to know what they sound like. I don't have enough customers. That's a rattlesnake. Most costs keep going up and I can't raise my prices. That is another rattlesnake. I keep losing employees and I don't know how to keep good people. That's a rattlesnake. My competition is bigger and better funded than I am. That's another rattlesnake. I had a product fail. I had a launch flop. I had a partnership go sideways. Rattlesnakes, rattlesnakes, rattlesnakes. Every one of us has a version of that farmland, something we're sitting on that doesn't look like what we thought we were buying when we started this journey. But here's what the rattlesnake farmer understood that most people never do. The problem and the opportunity are often the exact same thing. The only difference is the question you bring to it. Most people, when something goes wrong in business, ask, why is this happening to me? That question makes you a victim. And when you're a victim, you're waiting for someone else, a better economy, a better market, a better break to rescue you. You are no longer in control of your own story. Successful entrepreneurs ask a different question. What can I build because this happened? And that is not a small difference. That is the entire difference between someone who survives and someone who doesn't. Think about some of the companies that changed the world by asking that question. Airbnb didn't start because two guys had a brilliant idea sitting on a pile of venture capital. They started because they couldn't pay rent, had an air mattress and asked what if someone would pay to sleep on it. They took a problem, broke and desperate, and looked for the opportunity hiding inside it. Netflix didn't start with a mission to transform entertainment. It started because Reed Hastings was frustrated about a $40 late fee at the video rental store. He took his annoyance and asked, what if late fees did not exist? That frustration built a company worth hundreds of billions of dollars. These aren't stories about people who had the perfect setup. These are stories about people who had a problem and refused to just complain about it. The best businesses in the world weren't built by people who found perfect opportunities. They were built by people who found rattlesnakes and built something anyway. So I want to talk about something that doesn't get said enough in the entrepreneurial world because I think we dance around it to avoid hurting feelings. Complaining is expensive. It feels productive when something goes wrong in your business, talking about it, venting about it, listening all the reasons why it's unfair. It feels like you are processing, dealing, handling it, but you're not. You're burning time and energy on something that is producing exactly zero results. Complaining never found you a customer. Complaining never solved a cash flow problem. Complaining never improved your product or brought back a client you lost. Complaining never trained your team or grew your reputation. It has a 0% success rate, and yet most of us spend more time doing it than we'd ever admit. The rattlesnake farmer could have spent years, genuinely years, talking about how unfair it was that he ended up with that land. He had a legitimate case, in my opinion. He could have built a community of people who agree with him. He could have been the most justified, most validated complainer in the history of Florida. And he would have died broke on a piece of land full of snakes. Instead, he got to work. That's the move, business warriors. That's always the move, action. So now I want you to turn this back to you because this is not a show where we just tell you nice stories and send you back into your week unchanged. We're here to actually do something with what we're learning. I want you to think about your biggest frustration in your business right now. The thing you've been complaining about to your partner, to your friends, to yourself at 2 in the morning when you can't sleep. The rattlesnake you've been trying to scare away. So, got it? Now, I want you to sit with this question. What opportunity could be hiding inside this problem? Not how do I eliminate this, not how do I get away from this, but what is this thing trying to show you that you haven't let yourself see yet? Maybe customers keep asking you the same question over and over again, and a question that frustrates you because it's outside what you normally offer. That frustration, that's your next product. That's your online course. That's a gap in the market that only you are positioned to fill because you keep bumping into it. Maybe you keep losing a certain type of client to a competitor instead of just being angry about it. What if you got deeply curious about why? What does that competitor understand about that customer that you haven't figured out yet? What could you learn from that loss that makes you better? Maybe you are in an industry that's being disrupted by technology and it scares you. What if instead of running from the disruption, you got ahead of it? What if the thing that feels like it's threatening your business is actually the thing that could separate you from every competitor who's too afraid to adapt to the change? Sometimes your biggest frustration is the best market research you've ever done, and it's free. And here's what I want you to do before this week is over. It is very simple. It will take you 15 minutes, and it might be the most valuable 15 minutes you spend all week. So I want you to take out a piece of paper, open a note on your phone, whatever works for you, and draw two columns. On the left, write my biggest business problems right now. List them honestly. And I don't want you to soften them. Write the real ones, the ones that are actually keeping you up at night. And on the right side, I want you to write what opportunity could be hiding inside this. And then brainstorm. Don't edit yourself. Don't judge the ideas before they're even out there. Just not even brainstorm, just brain dump all the ideas you have on this sheet of paper. And I want you to just ask the question and write whatever comes up. Again, even if the ideas are very ridiculous at first, because sometimes the ridiculous idea is the rattlesnake farm. Somewhere on that right-hand list may be the next chapter of your business. And you'll never find it if you only ever looked at the left column. So, business warriors, here's what I want you to carry with you as you head into this week. Most people spend their entire lives trying to eliminate every rattlesnake. They put all of their energy into removing the obstacles, avoiding the discomfort, waiting for the perfect conditions before they build. And they wait and they wait. And the perfect conditions never come because perfect conditions don't exist. Entrepreneurs, do something different. Entrepreneurs look at the rattlesnakes and ask what they're good for. You're not going to have a perfect week. I'm sorry to burst your bubble. I can promise you right now that that will never happen. Something is going to be harder than you planned. Something is going to go sideways. Something is going to feel like a setback. When that happens, I want you to remember the farmer. I want you to remember the man in the desert who looked up and chose the stars. And I want you to ask the one question that separates the people who build things from the people who only ever talk about what went wrong. What opportunity is hiding inside this challenge? Because success is not reserved for the people who find perfect opportunities in perfect conditions. Success is built brick by brick, 1 week by week, on Monday by Monday, by the people who learn to recognize opportunity, hiding in, that opportunity hiding inside imperfect circumstances. And that's you. That's what business warriors do. I'm your host, Anna Steinfest, and this is Small Business Survival Conversations. I want you to have an incredible week, and I want you to get out after it. And remember, your greatest business opportunity may be disguised as the very problem you are trying the hardest to avoid.
You've been listening to the Small Business Survival Conversation podcast. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. And don't forget to join us next week for another episode. In the meantime, hook up with us on our Facebook group at Small Business Survival Tools and Tips. Till next time, thank you for listening.